Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Pozza from the Pennsylvania Key is the host of the program and is with us throughout the series. Well, John, there's no one on the on the phone line. There's no other person here in the studio.
It's just me and my lonesome.
What are we
Joe
doing?
Yeah,
Lonesome Joe.
Lonesome John. Yeah, we're going to talk about the 2018 PA1 book today, Joe, and I'm gonna do a special treat for our listeners.
Oh, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna actually read the story.
Let me run out and get some milk and cookies. Can we do that?
You may need some.
Okay. Hey. First of all, can you explain the purpose and significance of the PA1 book designation? What exactly is that?
PA1 book, Joe, is now in its 13th year in Pennsylvania. It started as basically almost like a competition where author illustrators of children's books submit an application to become the book for each year. And there's a committee on the state level that goes through those applications, and they select a PA1 book. And the book that's always selected carries a message for parents and for children that is very important. So this year, again, this is the 13th year, and the book that was selected is called My Cousin Momo, and it was written and illustrated by Zach O'Hora.
We had him on the show.
We had him on the show, and Zach actually was the author of a previous PA1 book called Stop Snoring, Bernard. So it's a great book, has a great message. It's comical. So I thought, that today would be a good day to read it. All the stories are short. So I'll describe it because a lot of the illustrations are really, really important, but I'll describe it as best I can, but I also will read it.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay. So for those who don't know, My Cousin Momo. Momo is a flying squirrel. So if you can just kind of imagine a flying squirrel. Okay. The first page shows Momo. This is my cousin Momo. He's a flying squirrel. Now, Momo is a little plump. He's wearing sunglasses. He's a new age type of squirrel. He's got a sweatband over his head, and he's carrying his suitcase. And he flies on Acorn Airways. He goes to Redwoods Park. These are all stickers on his, suitcase. So he's getting ready to go, and the cousins that are also squirrels, they're waiting anxiously because they can't wait to meet their cousin because they know that he flies. Now, these other squirrels that are his cousins can't fly. And they've been counting down the days until his arrival. So you should see all the squirrels in their yard, and one lives in a little treetop, and one's like mowing the grass, and they have a sign out, "Welcome Momo." They're preparing for Momo to come. Well, we might have told a friend or two about Momo's special ability, and they did, because the whole neighborhood of the squirrels are out now waiting for Momo to come. They want to see him fly. They're saying, "Fly, Momo, fly. Fly, Momo, fly." And the friends are not only just squirrels. We see there's a raccoon, there's bunny rabbits, there's chipmunks. In fact, there's a little chipmunk on a stump with a camera. He's all set to take Momo's picture. Well, Momo gets there, but Momo seems kind of shy. And he actually didn't fly in to see them, which was a little disappointing. Well, the parents of two of the squirrels, the cousins of Momo, they're busy making lunch, and they want to prepare lunch for Momo, a special visit. And Mom and Dad said, "Give him some time," Dad says. "Just make him feel welcome," said Mom. So, the next thing that happens is the other squirrels, well, maybe they can play a game and maybe Momo can chime in and feel like, he's one of them. So they decided that they want to play superheroes. Kids today, they always want to play superheroes. But Momo's idea of superhero was a little bit strange. Momo decides to be what's called Muffin Man.
Oh, okay. Now that's not a superhero.
No.
So he's different from
these. He's already different. So that's the second thing. Not only were they disappointed that he didn't fly in, but in playing superheroes, he wants to play a Muffin Man. So here's Momo, and he's dressed up in a costume as if he's a muffin. He just has his head sticking out of the top of the muffin, and he's got a little utensil that you use to mix batter to make muffins in his hand. And the other squirrels, one's dressed as Batman, the other's dressed as Robin with a mask. They say, that doesn't even make sense. A Muffin Man?
So he's the point here is he's different from these other kids. And, if you go back to your school days and my school days, we probably were basically in classes with kids who looked pretty much like us. Maybe we weren't superheroes, but we all looked the same, and there weren't really other people being Muffin Man. Today, there's much more diversity in the classroom, and I find it timely because I know that with these PA1 books, there is to be a lesson for the child. And I find it interesting that the author, Zach O'Hare, made the differences that Momo exhibits a way to introduce diversity to young kids even before they begin school.
That's true. That's true, Joe. In fact, we're going to hear from Zach. He talks a little bit about diversity and why that was important in his book. And let's see if we can get his take.
That was another sort of factor about, I kind of like my children's books to be, and I feel like some of the better books are a little weird, and weird is okay. Weird is interesting, and it's something that, I feel like everyone should be open to, and, the nicer way of putting that could be is diversity, obviously. And it's nice to find out that things, even if they're not exactly what you expected, they might be a little different. They can still be fun and interesting and something that you grow to love.
Yeah, he pretty much says it the way it should be, and so the next part of the story is Momo then starts playing games with the kids, and they started a game of what they call acorn pong instead.
Okay.
So here's Momo with one of his cousins, and it looks like they're playing ping pong. So every squirrel, flying or not, knows how to play acorn pong. So here they are playing. It's like ping pong, but they're using acorns. But they say every squirrel except Momo plays acorn pong the way it's supposed to be played, because as they're playing it and the acorn is bouncing over the net, Momo eats the acorn.
No, you don't.
Yeah, instead of hitting it back, he's crunching away on the acorn, and they say, "Oh my gosh, what is with this cousin Momo of ours?" So then they decide they want to play hide and seek, and he even messed up the hide and seek. He says, here he is with his camera around his neck, and he's saying, "Hey guys, look what I found." And instead of hiding, he's taking pictures of mushrooms, and instead of hiding, he's finding things in their backyard fascinating. So he's taking pictures. So the squirrel is saying, "Momo was no fun." And the one boy says to his sister, "We should have invited Stinky George instead." And they're kicking the darn mushrooms, and there's Momo in the background. He's hearing everything that they're saying, and he's sobbing.
He's shy. He's really shy.
He's very shy. And he's really feels so bad for what they're saying about him. So you know what happens? Momo's feeling like he should have never come to visit his cousins in the first place. And there's a big picture of him. He's packing up his suitcase already, tears running down his face, and he's getting ready to leave. And two of his cousins are peeking out from outside his bedroom, and they see that he's sobbing. So they think, they felt really bad, and they said, maybe we've gone too far. And so two of his cousins say, we didn't mean to say that thing about Stinky George. They're telling Momo, don't go, Momo. So there's Momo. He's listening to them, and he's starting to feel a little bit better. So then they decided to try things Momo's way. So who knew that a Muffin Man could be a real hero? So they're playing heroes again. Muffin dresses up again as a Muffin Man. And there's two of his cousins. One is actually dressed up as a donut, and the other one is dressed up as, looks like a cookie, and they've got their heads. One has their head coming out of the donut hole, and the other one pokes a head through a cookie, and two other holes through the cookie for their arms to get through. And they call it pastry power. And then they go to play acorn pong. Who know that acorn pong was actually quite tasty? So they're playing the acorn pong, and his two cousin squirrels are also crunching away, eating at the acorns.
How great that they adapt to the way he plays. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
That's the real lesson for these kids, and for kids, I think, that parents are reading the book to.
Absolutely. He even played hide and seek. Well, the other squirrels even decided to play hide and seek Momo style. So there they are. They're being adventurous. You know how Momo liked to use his camera and taking pictures. Now they're out and about in their backyard, and they find a caterpillar. And there's Momo with his magnifying glass looking at all the intricacies close up of a caterpillar. And there's his two cousins taking pictures and using Momo's camera. And even though they don't like the looks of a caterpillar, they're still doing it Momo's way. So they all agreed it was more fun to do it Momo's way. And so Momo then decides, hey, you know what? I can even hide too. So there's Momo. He's adapting to their way of doing it as well, and he's hiding behind a leaf. And he's kind of laughing, and they're laughing too. Well, it turned out to be pretty fun having Momo around, as the squirrels then were really starting to all get along. We didn't want him to go, but when it was time to go, and there's his cousin taking pictures of the three together, and they were enjoying their time. Well, then they were wondering, what's Momo going to do when he leaves? Well, Momo, in fact, did it in his own way. He left in his own way. He actually flew.
All right, Momo.
He
All right.
flew. And they were saying, bye, Momo. And there's Momo way up in the air flying with his camera around his neck and his suitcase. And after he leaves, his two cousins are already looking at the calendar. And they say, now we're counting down the days until we get to visit Momo. They have all the days checked off, and they can't wait to see Momo again. And it looks like they're planning to go visit Momo where Momo lives, instead of Momo having to come visit them, because they had such a great time. So
that is so wonderful.
Great message. Yeah. Great message in the story.
I mentioned that Momo, obviously, he's different, and he's also shy. And it's interesting to me because I write a little that Zach did what I think most writers do, which he drew upon his experiences with the people around him, in this case his son's shyness, as an element in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach has a creative process that he goes through, when he does stories, and he used his son as an example. I remember in our interview with him, he had his youngest son, Zach's youngest son, was rather shy, which is it often happens in families where, you know, sons are, especially if you have an older brother and who sort of is more demonstrative, and they eventually they grow into it to being more assertive, and that was the way it was. And he used his younger son as an example, but Zach also talked about his creative process. Let's hear from him.
That's usually
I had asked.
just to make a card for my wife, or just, you know, kind of doodling something and something fun. And usually I'm just trying to make a little character that'll kind of crack me up. And sometimes a story will come, you know, right after I make the character, and sometimes I have to kind of live with the character on my wall, and I just kind of stare at it. You know, it might kick around for a year or two before I have a story for it. And once the story starts to emerge, like I usually have the beginning and maybe the ending and and some kind of thing that happens to them, you know, the catalyst for the story. But filling in the middle parts of the story I find very difficult. Sometimes that takes a long time. I'm an illustrator first, so I think visually. As I'm processing it, I kind of go back and forth between, you know, typing out an outline of the story and then, you know, doing sketches and trying to figure out what can be told visually that would be redundant to have words, and kind of work things out visually as well.
I had actually asked him, because I've interviewed musicians, and I always ask the question, or I should say songwriters, which came first, the words or the music, and in Zach's case, which came first, the words or the pictures. So it's interesting, he writes into the pictures. He does the pictures, and then he writes into that. That's interesting.
Yeah, in fact, Joe, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I don't know if this is amongst a lot of children's books, but with the PA1 book, the authors that have been chosen more recently, they're primarily illustrators first and then authors. So yes, they illustrate their story first, and then they put the words to it as they're developing a storyline. So it's kind of interesting. And I think it's very effective, actually. You know, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I read the story, but the pictures bring the story so much more to life, and it's really something to you know, to see.
You know, I think one of the mistakes that parents make, because we're so tired at the end of the day, is to zip through the bedtime book without stopping to answer our kids' questions. And along with that, we may impose our interpretation of the story on the kid instead of letting the child interpret it for themselves. And I know in talking to Zach when we had him on the show, he mentioned that, and he mentioned the way that he feels it should work, basically letting the child discover. Yeah.
Exactly right. And let's hear from how Zach addressed that question.
I think it's good for, you know, for parents when they're reading the books to, you know, sort of prompt questions and have the child answer it. You know, I mean, there's nothing worse than a preachy book that tells you exactly what you're supposed to be thinking. I mean, those are the worst kind of books. Right. The best ones, you start a dialogue and start a conversation, and you know, I think we underestimate children's, you know, ability to understand things instinctively sometimes, and they find things that I didn't even intend, or that adults might not see. So, you know, I think it's good to have prompting questions to get them started and thinking about things, and just to verbalize what they are thinking. I like to leave it open, you know, for the kids to you know, come up with their own take on things.
John, did you read to you have a son, right?
Yes.
Did you read to him when he was little?
You know, that the response to that was exactly what I was thinking about, Joe. When I read to my son when he was little, I kind of did the same thing that Zach was suggesting, is that, you know, illustrations in children's book are so visual and so powerful, especially for young ones who can't necessarily pick up every single word, but they notice the illustrations. And as Zach was saying, I used to do this, is sometimes before you even read, you know, you find your child, making comments regarding what they're seeing and what they're picking up in terms of what's going to happen in the story. So that I think is powerful because that allows them to use their imagination as to how the story is going to develop.
And you don't want to edit and say, no, that's not what he means.
Exactly right. Yeah. Let them use their own creative freedom there to interpret in their own way what's going to happen in that story.
Obviously, when you were, and I did too with my two daughters, and I always found it fascinating that they actually, I don't know if this is how they really begin to read, but you turn the page, and after, a couple of months, they're reading.
Yeah, exactly right.
From memory. Okay, so we know what kids get out of it. What did you as a parent get out of reading to your son?
Well, first of all, that's probably, it's a bonding time, very much a bonding time, because it's something that both you and your son or daughter look forward to, okay? Often, too, is not that it's all the time because you want to read to your child at all different times, but always before you went to bed. That's a period of time where, a child never wants to go to bed, right, but if they can go to bed with a neat story and you're there bonding with them and you're both sharing it, that means an awful lot. And we talk about, kids like to do like to repeat things. And especially when they've heard a story before and they like the story, they know how the story even is going to end. They enjoy that. In fact, that gets them to tell the story themselves. Even if they maybe necessarily can't read it verbatim, they'll know and they could actually do their own narration of the story.
I read the kids' books to both of my daughters. I got to tell you about my daughter in England who just made me a grandpa for the first time
That's great,
about 9 months ago. She is reading things like To Kill a Mockingbird, Little Women's. She's reading, because she lives in England, she's reading him, great American novels. And of course, he doesn't know what she's reading.
Right.
But I guess you could read a kid a catalog. It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
And, they'd still be getting something out of it.
Absolutely.
When I was a young child, I could read before I went in to school, but you really weren't taught until the first grade. Now, they're pretty much expected to know their letters and be able to read a few words and enter kindergarten. But many parents don't understand the importance of reading to their preschool kid, even their preschool kid. As an expert in the field, explain, John, how important it is to read to your very young child.
Well, first of all, language, as I said, 90% of brain development occurs before the age of 5. So that's before they're actually in school, 90%. So they're already forming their own frame of reference for language, words, speaking, and their interpretation of behavior. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of reading in terms of literacy for children to prepare them for school.
One of the neat aspects about the PA1 book is that the author actually visits various locations around the state. In wrapping up, where and when will Zach O'Hara be coming to our general area?
Well, actually, we're fortunate. Zach is actually going to be visiting Brockway and Brookville. His tour is throughout the month of April. So on April 5th, Zach will be at 10 a.m. at the Brockway Elementary School. He'll be reading the book to the kids there, and he'll also be doing activities surrounding My Cousin Momo. And then right after that, he'll just be coming down to the library, the Rebecca Arthur's Library in Brookville at 1 o'clock. He'll be doing the same type of activity, but at the library with preschoolers primarily and kindergarten kids in Brookville.
This was great, John. I finished my milk and cookies. You read me the story. I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah, right.
And that is our program for today. We'll be back at 2 weeks in the same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Pozza and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening and have a great day.